On the very night when the lowest point was reached and the commune was on the very verge of disintegrating altogether, a new spark of life was injected into it, and it came from the larger community.
Well, come on in. I'll introduce you to my friends.
I see we didn't wear the right clothes.
Don't worry about that. These people won't even see what you're wearing so long as it's not a priest's smock or a nun's habit.
What do we do now?
Let's carry the whole thing out.
We'd better remove the plates and silverware before dumping it.
Lyman, Anastasia, I'd like to introduce you to my closest friends. That over there is Tony, the one picking up the pillows. Her specialty is...
You leave me out of this, Grover.
Hey, Olympia, I'd like to introduce you to my friends.
Bad timing, Grover.
I'm going to the bar.
For Christ's sake, what's the matter with everyone tonight? I thought we could all display some of our things for our friends here.
I don't have anything to display.
Aw, Donna. Set a couple of your plants in those shelves for decoration? Don't go for that.
Nothing of mine will ever be in these shelves.
You must be Olympia. Grover has been telling us about the wonderful set of alternative institutions you run in this house, and...
Then Grover is Ben up to his usual fibs. I personally don't run anything.
Please don't misunderstand us. Grover made it perfectly clear that each activity is altogether spontaneous, initiated and organized at the grassroots level by the participants themselves.
That's very well put.
I guess I did misunderstand your statement.
Anastasia.
Welcome to our commune, Anastasia.
What I find hardest to believe are the things you do with children.
That's the same as our other activities. You see, we don't believe in one person running things, and we're convinced such a variety of different activities could never arise if one individual...
Hey, you two aren't leaving, are you? You haven't even met.
We're not in the right mold to meet anyone, Grover. And the puppet show?
Do you mind if I examine some of this pottery?
Not at all. Some of it is Maddie's.
The show is off, kids.
Anastasia, have a look at this. I believe nothing like it has ever been exhibited.
Really? We all consider Philip extremely original, but I never thought...
This was on the ground. I guess it fell off.
Oh, that side. Throw it out. I'm sick of looking at it.
Meet our new friends. Dan, Lyman, Anastasia. This is Dan, the typesetting man.
Pretty fancy getup.
Yeah, they're on their way back from a costume party this other friend of mine was giving, and...
What took all day, Dan?
Strangest meeting. They decided to dissolve the group, and half of them are going to do a critique of political organizations. I said I'd typeset it.
Politics is something I could never understand.
Neither could I.
Say, Dan, you've been turning down everything I've been sending your way.
I've decided not to type any more papers for profs, Grover, but I appreciate the effort you went to. It's too much like a job.
Isn't that like cutting off your nose?
Maybe it is, Grover, but I'd rather stick to stuff that interests me. We got this place together so as to get away from that crap, and then I started to bring that crap inside here.
You're starting to sound like Ben.
I take it the designs on these plates are all your originals?
Phillips.
They're simply marvelous. Don't you agree, Anastasia? Grover tells me you melted down the objects displayed in your first brochure. What a shame.
They were just experiments.
While we're on the brochure business, Lyman here was asking me if we'd be into making a second brochure. Only this time, the pictures would show things that are actually available.
That's an excellent idea. We were so together when we did the first one.
In this time, we could run several thousand instead of a measly 200.
Why in the world would we need that many?
You don't seem to understand how much potential interest there is in the creative work you've been hiding behind these walls.
There's a hungry public out there, Maddie, just begging to see this stuff. Could you see your way to typesetting it, Dan?
I guess so.
I'm not sure Ben would be willing to write the text.
That's a shame. But Lyman here can compose a snappy text or two.
Who'd want to print thousands?
I'd gladly do the printing if Barry agrees to work with me.
Any day, Olympia. Man, I'd really like to make some of this stuff.
I'm sure Philip would be glad to show you.
These plates are really out of sight, Philip. I never really looked at this shit before.
This...
Oh, that's just a commune expression, a type of shorthand.
You certainly don't have the best lighting for looking at it.
Grover has mentioned that several times. We're working on the lighting.
Have you ever thought, Philip, how much you might want to charge for these vases?
You mean money-wise?
Hey, wait a minute. Are all these things in shelves because they're for sale?
That wasn't my idea when I helped put them there only an hour ago.
I don't see what's gotten into you two.
Maybe I sound like Ben, but I have a feeling that something I don't like is creeping all over me.
So do I, but I know what mine's from.
I thought we never reached the point of actually selling our stuff.
Don't be a bore, Dan. We settled that question years ago, and you're being hypocritical.
What did we settle years ago?
Please don't play the fool, Dan. You're the one who argued most loudly against Ben on the question of selling the typesetting. Do I have to remind you that Tony's Birth Center, the garage, your own typesetting co-op?
All revolutionary businesses.
I need a drink.
Call them what you like. They were set up to cover their own expenses and support the people engaged in them so that those people could be liberated from the mindless jobs done for poisonous corporations.
Unreported, to boot, so that we could draw unemployment and welfare while earning...
There's no liberation if we transform this space into a poisonous...
You're being so narrow, Dan. Why is something cool when you and Tony do it, but not when Philip or I do it?
All the shit I brought here in trickles, you're proposing bringing in by truckloads.
Do you often have political arguments?
What do you call political? I'm talking about our fucking lives.
Dan, do you need to shout at our guests?
Sorry, I thought I was asking a question.
You'd easily win with me, Dan, since I couldn't put up a fight. I've never been able to wind my way through the contorted mazes of a political labyrinth.
That is a good word for it.
If you don't mind my changing the subject, Philip, I wanted to ask you about these house-shaped ceramics.
They certainly do look out of place in the midst of all those expressive motifs.
It's not that they lack originality.
Those aren't Philip's.
Let's go, Dan. I see that the standards are being set. Judges are being appointed. And it's a contest I never agreed to be in.
Lisa, Roseanne, we're leaving.
Just a second.
What I found most exciting of all that Grover told us was the educational experiments you've been carrying out with the children.
I don't know, as I'd call them, experience. The kids are into their own things, just like the rest of us.
That's exactly what I mean.
I don't know what we could show you. That's a puppet stage Philip helped the kids design and build.
You certainly are a mind of original ideas, Philip.
Actually, the kids had the ideas.
Are any of the kids here?
I think two are about to leave, but maybe we could introduce you.
Come on up.
I think I've reached a decision.
What is it, Philip?
I've decided to give my notice at the shipping department.
Philip, congratulations. I must say, it's about time.
That way, I can devote more of my time to my work.
The larger community became increasingly involved in the activities of the commune, giving rise to new projects and enlarged perspectives, while old members, whose participation was ever more marginal, resisted the changes with a growing ferocity. Something like a fight to the death began between the dynamism of the new people intent on pushing the commune in new directions and the stultifying negativism of the freeloaders intent on bringing all activity to a dead halt. This was one of the historical instances when the living were not crushed under the weight of the dead.
Please be careful with that one.
This is the greatest move we've made in years.
Where do you want them?
Just set them on the floor. I'll arrange them later. Philip, please do be careful.
I never even knew there was glass here.
Oh wow, what a workroom! No painter studio could be brighter than this.
Give people a chance to actually see what we do here.
Anastasia and Lyman said they'd be here about now.
Maybe something came up. They've sure made a lot of useful suggestions.
What I'd like to know is, where are the other people who are constantly talking about improving this place?
Who else knew about this?
Grover, for instance.
Yeah, Grover has a big mouth, but when it actually comes to doing the work, he's 50 miles away, turning someone else onto a project.
There won't be enough sun in my room to keep all these plants alive.
You could get one of those lamps.
You're not changing your mind, are you?
No, Philip. It's the first house decorating idea you've had since you've been here, and I agreed.
Do you know where the iodine and bandages are kept, Barry?
They're in the bathroom cabinet.
Cut yourself?
Roseanne brushed her knee, climbing to the tree halves. Spring cleaning?
Sort of. We're removing the plants.
Permanently? But that window is such a perfect place for them. They get sun during most of the day.
Yeah, but look at the landscape you can see now.
The landscape? Is that why you're doing this? You can see the same landscape by opening the front door. by sitting on the lawn, by walking. Sorry to see those plants go, especially now that I've finally gotten Roseanne to stop trying to pull them down.
If you like them so well, Maddie, why don't you put some of them up in your living room?
Thanks for the suggestion. Maybe I'll do that.
What a crock that is. She doesn't only stay away from the work, but she's full of good ideas about how I ought to do my work.
It's true that Maddie hasn't been very cooperative lately. She used to be so interested.
Do you ever wonder why, Philip?
Once this is clean, we'll have to schedule our next steps.
All I want to know is when you schedule the planting.
What a change.
Yeah, you'll be able to see what you're typesetting.
Suppose so. But I never had trouble before.
You too?
Me too what?
Never mind.
Dan, I know you're awfully busy, but do you think you'll find the time to fit our brochure in between all those political things you're doing?
I haven't been doing much of anything, Olympia, and I didn't know you were in a hurry for it. When Philip gave me the manuscript, he said he wanted me to look it over.
That was 2 weeks ago. Did you look it over?
Yes, I suppose I could start on it next week. When do you want the typesetting done?
What did you think of it?
Frankly, I liked the first brochure we did a lot better. In spite of his whiny politics, Ben writes intelligent texts and good poetry, whereas your friend Lyman...
We're a commune, Dan. When did we start discriminating between your friends, my friends, his friends?
When didn't we? I can't stand this character, and I don't consider him my friend, comrade, fellow communard.
You don't even know him, Dan.
He's a hack, a PR man, an author of advertising copy, and his material stinks. The whole thing reads like an advertising brochure. I thought you might be willing to ask Ben to write the texts.
We'll think about it.
I didn't see anything wrong with Lyman's texts.
I think they're much more to the point than Ben's were.
Then what's there to think about?
Wait, I have an idea.
Has anyone seen the lug wrench? It's not in the garage.
Yes, it's in the kitchen. I need it as a pry bar.
What did you do to Donna's plants?
What did we... We smashed them, Sharon. That's what we did.
Of course you wouldn't know, would you, Sharon? Ever since your Hollywood movie romance started, you haven't had the time to find out what's going on around here.
I do my share and more.
Don't we all, Sharon? But we don't all criticize the work other people are doing. Why do you decide you like the window dirty the moment when someone finally starts cleaning it? Why do you decide you're no longer interested in improving this place the moment when people with fresh ideas start making improvements?
I don't know.
Speak of negative energy. She wants tomatoes in precisely the spot where you're planting parsley, and you'd put tomatoes there. She'd talk your head off about parsley.
She's always been like that. I don't see how Steve can work with her.
He's another person who's had his head up his ass since their great romance began.
Has everyone seen this morning's news? Easter canceled. Christ's body found. Look at this picture. The feet that once walked the Sea of Galilee here protrude from the mud, still showing the nail scars.
Let me see that.
We're almost done.
I'm terribly sorry we're late. Grover's car broke down and
you probably had to wait for him for an hour. We know Grover. What do you think?
It's fantastic.
what a transformation.
This is a riot.
Grover, what do you think?
About what?
The window.
Oh, the window. The vegetation is gone.
Is that all?
The thing I like least about plants is that people who already believe God exists point to a plant and tell you that it proves he exists. Makes me associate plants with religious icons.
The three of us have been discussing the exposition you suggested, Lyman, and we don't think we could have it together in less than 6 months.
We wouldn't want to have it in the summer.
Barry and I have barely started photographing Philip's new creations, and Philip wants to revise several old ones and make a whole series of new ones.
I didn't have any kind of deadline in mind. The sooner the better, I say.
Well, there's a minor bottleneck. Have either of you typeset on a machine like this one before?
Certainly. It's an ordinary office typewriter.
I know, but it has some special attachments.
It has that device on the right if you want to justify copy. My friend Lamia operates a machine just like this one. She's a secretary.
Do you think Lamia could typeset the text for the brochure?
I know she could. She'll be flattered to be asked. I've told her all about you and she's absolutely thrilled about your programs. She has an interest in primitive mythology and art, and particularly in modern revivals of ancient forms.
That's wonderful. Then there's no bottleneck. Dan, could we talk to you for a second? Could you return the brochure manuscript to us sometime today? There's no hurry. We've had a change of plans.
You're going to reconsider the texts?
We're going to reconsider everything. We're playing with the idea of having the commune women prepare an exposition.
The idea seems good.
And you knew you'd think so. Of course, we'll want the women group to do all the work that's involved.
I understand. I'll bring the manuscripts by after lunch.
And the machine is going to be in use some of the time.
Obviously. I don't have many projects now, so that won't inconvenience me.
A woman's exposition?
Of course, we'll still exhibit your things, Philip. But we'll take care of all the other arrangements. Isn't that right, Anastasia?
I don't get it.
Let it settle gradually, Grover. It's such a beautiful day. Why don't we discuss this some more while walking? We should also talk about our schedule for the coming months. It took most of a year to get together all the elements required by the commune's first and most memorable exposition. The continuing indifference and even outright hostility of the numerous passive onlookers who had nothing better to do with their time than cripple our commune's project did not help expedite the various tasks. That the event took place at all is almost a miracle, and is entirely due to the profound involvement of the larger community and its devotion to the commune's continuing development.
Well, it's Dan.
Hi, Tony.
You're almost a stranger. Find new friends?
No, I haven't, Tony. But I have felt like a stranger. I couldn't take Olympia or Philip greeting me with another political pamphlet, Dan. And I didn't want to get in their way.
Well, that's been Philip's sole concern for the past months, that the commune not get in the way of his expo.
I heard it took place this past weekend.
Didn't they invite you? No, I guess they wouldn't have. They know how you feel about the friends Philip has been waiting for all his life.
How did it go?
I didn't go either, although they did invite me. Have you seen the brochure?
I see they left Lyman's texts. I thought it was supposed to be a woman's project.
That's news to me. I thought it was Philip's coming out party. He acted like a kid all last week. It must have been the greatest experience of his life. Remember when he used to melt down his objects and you could only see them in pictures? That's ancient history. Now he's prolific. He produces art objects by the crate. What are you typing?
Can't you guess?
Another political pamphlet, Dan? When will you political people learn to put your ideology into practice? That's exactly what she puts into practice. Her ideology.
That's actually more than I've been doing.
Something happened?
Not exactly. My unemployment ran out and I had to get a part-time job in a print shop with no window facing the outside. I really like it here now. I thought there'd be some interesting things to set, but it's all ads. And you?
The same. I heard that Lisa started school.
Just this year. And Leon?
We're still holding out, but it's impossible with no other kids around. Leon has the TV schedule memorized, and he's glued to the tube all day. It's 10 times worse than school. At least in school you're with others and you can rebel. He just sits and watches.
What about all the projects he and Alec had going?
Alec's in boarding school.
Really? I didn't know.
Philip didn't want anyone or anything between him and the expo.
Did Donna take part in this preparation?
Are you kidding? Donna's like a ghost. She lives here but no one sees her.
She used to be such a lively person.
She was a real trip when I first came here. I'll never forget her, "Gosh, is that marijuana? I've heard so much about it. What do you do?"
That's cute.
It's true. She used to be excited by everything and interested in everyone. Funny how people change. She still cares for the garden. She comes alive once a year when the seeds get planted. The rest of the time she goes from her job to the bar and back.
I remember she was already like that years ago. That night Ben wrote a poem to her.
I remember that night too, and I've always regretted missing Ben's reading because of Grover's antics. At that time I thought those two would make a go of it.
Ben and Donna? Are you kidding? The radical hippie and the straight secretary?
It wasn't so ridiculous then.
I remember she thought him sweet.
After her miserable high school marriage, Donna apparently didn't want to get involved. But around the time of Ben's poem, I know she would have accompanied Ben to a farm commune in Saskatchewan or Mongolia. But except for his poem, Ben never made a move nor said a word, and over the years they drifted apart.
I saw Ben a couple weeks ago. I had some research to do at the underground paper. I hadn't seen him in over a year. He hasn't changed. He still thinks a revolution would only make things worse, so why do anything? Maybe that's why he never approached Donna, because that's pointless too if you practice the politics of despair.
At one time I agreed with you, Dan, but now I know you're wrong. I was very close to Ben for almost 2 years. He's someone who doesn't just talk about independent human beings. He actually believes it. He thinks a revolution will be significant only if it's made by independent individuals who act on their own. If they can be talked into it, then they can be talked out of it, and worse, they can be talked into believing they got it when they didn't. That's why he rejects all kinds of propaganda, and that's why he never tried to convince Donna to quit her job, or join us in our projects, or move to Mount Tabor, or wherever. Poor Donna was dying to be convinced, to be invited, but Ben wanted her to decide on her own. His poem wasn't an invitation. It was a gift, a love offering. Donna accepted it as that and disappointed Ben by continuing to repeat her crummy routine. She waited for his invitation to make a move, but the invitation never came. Donna remained the cool lady to Ben, and Ben remained sweet to Donna.
You're a generous person, Tony. I'm sorry I never really got to know either of them. I never even knew about you and Ben.
We never loved each other. Ben and I are too much alike. We're too movementy for each other's tastes. Ben and Donna loved each other. It's sad.
When did you break up with Ben?
I didn't. Ben broke up with the house when the new friends started dropping by. I guess Ben expected me to drop out too, or to spark a confrontation, or make a scene, or at least let him know he wasn't alone. And I guess I disappointed him the same way Donna did. Nothing was clear to me.
Does Ben really have nothing to do with the commune?
It's just a house now, Dan, and it's a hotel to Ben. He leaves in the morning and comes back at night. If he runs into any of us, he greets us the way he'd greet the hotel receptionist or elevator operator. It isn't what you call despair. Ben is full of hope, but his hope is constantly disappointed.
Dan, nice to see you're coming around again.
Yes, we do so much to make our friends feel at home here, don't we?
Why so sarcastic on such a lovely morning, Tony?
Who's being sarcastic? Dan told me he'd heard through the grapevine that a commune event took place last weekend. Thank God for grapevines.
We told you about it, Tony, and you didn't come.
Did you also tell Donna about it? And Ben?
Neither of them has taken part in any commune activities in years, and you know it.
I bet Sharon would have loved to work on the preparations.
Tony, have you ever tried working with Sharon? I tried for years, and believe me, it's impossible.
You never had any trouble working with Steve. Why was he excluded?
Who's excluded, for crying out loud? You're making a political ideology out of your own paranoia. Ever since his great romance, Steve dropped out of everything.
Maddie worked all right with everyone. She hasn't had a great romance in recent years, and she was really into the pottery for a while. Why wasn't she?
Is this a third degree? Look, I hate to say this, but Olympia, Philip, and I don't enjoy working with Maddie.
Since when?
If you got to know, it's because she gives off the wrong kind of energy. Negative energy.
So some people are excluded because they're too eager, and others because they aren't eager enough.
No one's excluded from anything. You've got a butterfly in your noodle this morning, Tony.
Why did Dan have to learn about the event from the grapevine?
This discussion is a waste of time. Look, a couple people gave a small party for their friends. That's common enough, right? It so happens that Dan wasn't the best friend of some of the friends. For crying out loud, Dan, I thought you couldn't stand Lyman Sanders. Don't you ever give parties? Do you invite everyone you know in the whole city? Look, I've got some work to do.
I'll be damned.
Won't we all? Were you calling this a commune?
How long has this been going on?
Long, I think. You were still one of the friends when it started.
You mean when I sided against Ben about the typesetting?
Even before that, I suppose. But why ask me? I was one of the friends until last week. My work was a bona fide commune project. It didn't interfere with their preparations, and I didn't exude any negative energy.
You mean you didn't question anything they were doing?
It can't be that simple, since Maddie didn't either.
Maddie said something when they were taking the plants to Donna's room, and she knew at the time...
Is that it? And I always thought Maddie was such a meek person.
Man, am I glad it's you two.
Why us two? Doesn't the whole town love you anymore? Cops after you? This is the last place they'd look, you know.
Have you heard about the shit that went down last weekend?
We've been waiting for you to clue us in. But why the sudden fury? I thought you were one of the impresarios.
There was all this talk about the women's group doing all the work.
If it hadn't been for such talk, you would have worked your ass off, wouldn't you, Grover?
I thought you were one of the women, Grover. You and Philip and Barry and Lyman.
How was I to know that Maddie, Sharon, and Tony, and Donna were in on it?
What happened?
Women's art exposition, my ass. It was a religious revival, a mystical seance, and we'd better confront
Welcome to the club.
A seance? Are you serious?
I thought it couldn't be serious. That's why I went along. I kept waiting for the twist, the April Fool's joke, but it was no joke. They were serious.
What kind of seance? I can't believe it.
Anastasia brought down these friends of hers, a woman called Lamia, who turned out to be some kind of palm reader, and this dude, Earl, who was supposedly into self-publishing.
Presumably you didn't know any of Anastasia's friends when you first brought her here.
All I knew was she was into the shit we did here.
Go on, Grover. The seance?
Anyway, Anastasia starts it all up with a rap about this commune being a return to the origin, resurrecting the spirit of our earliest ancestors. I could go along with her shit because I thought it was some kind of poetry. Then she introduces this Lamia as someone with powers to put us in direct contact with the dead ancestors.
Oh, wow, you are serious. And here I was thinking that Sharon and Maddie and Steve would have loved to take part in the preparations. Wrong track again.
Candles, burning incense, hands on the table, the whole thing. And Olympia saying, "Oh, how exciting. I never contacted an ancestor before." I laugh and ask if there's a translator in the room that could tell us what the mummy says. Philip and Barry are sitting there transfixed, like they expect a Neanderthal to walk in any second. Then Lamia gets into this incoherent rap like she's all OD'd on LSD, although I didn't see her take anything, and it turns out she's the ancestor.
Incredible.
That's bad enough, but then I start recognizing bits and scraps of her rap, and it turns out it's not even original. It comes out of an old Life magazine article on the Aztecs that I happen to have to read. I keep expecting someone to say something. I look at Philip, but he thinks he's seeing Kulkan on Illyria Street. Finally, I can't take it anymore, so I get up. Lamia snaps out of her trance and says I broke the spell, and the others look at me as if I'd set the house on fire, so I split.
That's heavy.
I phoned Lyman yesterday to ask about the meaning of what went down. Listen to this. "I hope you don't feel embarrassed," he tells me. "Not everyone is strong enough to support such an experience. Can you dig that?" It turns out that Lamia and this Earl character bought $500 worth of Philip's pottery, so my splitting didn't break the spell.
Philip sold his pottery?
What did you think the expo was for?
Then the brochure text sounded like ads because they were ads.
It settles slowly, doesn't it?
It's not the sale that bugs me.
That's why we considered you one of them, Grover.
It's the religious shit that gets me. Is that what we've been up to? I think you people in the house had better get it together. I've got a split.
Why we people? Why not everyone who ever related to the commune?
That's what I'm talking about. There's got to be some kind of confrontation over this seance business.
The seance and the selling and the exclusions? Are you still free on weekends?
Weekday nights, weekends anytime. But be sure you tell me in advance.
I had an idea when Grover started talking.
So did I. What's yours?
It has to do with going back to the origins.
That's it. We're too movement-y for each other, Tony.
We could have a resurrection, our version of one. Remember that Japanese meal Ben and I were preparing?
Sounds great.
And the puppet play that was never performed? And the alternative to school that never got off the ground? And the commune that almost started to be real? And
Too much has been lost to get all that back, Tony. But I know Maddie will be eager to try. She's literally been doing nothing at all. What with 2 kids and Roseanne home all day long.
I'm sure Steve and Sharon will be willing, even Ben. I know Donna is longing to go back to one of the intersections where she failed to make a turn. She's not the only one.
Oh, hi, Dan. Working on another political pamphlet?
Cripes, Olympia. He's hardly been here for a year.
Really? I hadn't noticed.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, nothing personal, Dan. I've been so busy with so many exciting projects and friends.
Some of us would like to talk to you about those projects and friends, Olympia.
I was on my way out, Tony. What is it?
I don't mean now. I mean when everyone could be present. Everyone who wasn't invited to last weekend's event.
I don't have time to discuss anything with those people. There's too much else to do in life.
That's one of the things we'd like to talk about. How and when some of my friends became those people.
I have no idea what you're hinting at.
I'm not hinting. What you call those people now includes everyone who helped make this place what it once was. And I'm intending to give a party for all those people.
You can give all the parties you want, Tony, anytime you want. How does that concern me?
Some of us have questions that concern you, like critiques of last weekend's expo.
The expo was the commune's most significant event so far.
We heard all about it from Grover.
What did Grover tell you about it?
He said it was a seance.
Oh, he should have talked to me first.
Why should he? If that type of thing is taking place in this house, we should all know about it, and we should talk to each other about it at a meeting where everyone is present.
I told you I was in a hurry.
We'll walk you to the car. Are you afraid to defend your seance?
I happen to have nothing to hide. Let's meet tonight to talk about the scheduling.
We'd like to schedule it right now.
Fine, I'm free the day after tomorrow.
It'll have to be over the weekend. Donna can't meet on weeknights.
Neither can I.
Well, I'll be out of town this coming weekend. The following weekend then. I'll shift what I intend to do then to midweek.